Hello, everybody. Welcome to part 2. I know part 1, it was a lot, right? It was a lot, right? But it just gets better. It just gets better. Um, I wanted to uh go into what this phase and the trauma narrative, what I'll be doing in this video. And that is taking the facts, going back to the facts and starting to add feeling and emotions and all of those things. And then those feelings and emotions are supposed to reflect what I felt in those moments. Not so much what I feel about them now, because that's when we add meaning and that's later. And so typically you would generate a timeline, right, with all of the significant moments in this trauma narrative. That's the easiest way to do it. Easy is not the right word. That is the most effective way of doing things. It can also be written, but because I'm not ADHD, I could not do a written trauma narrative. Doing it this way, so much better for someone like me. But if you love to write and can write a trauma narrative about a specific event, do what works for you, right? And so in this video, again, I'll just be adding feeling. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Um, I may not go in order. And so forgive me if I don't. That's not my intentions. Because I do want to also note that sometimes throughout the trauma narrative, you can recall memories in present, like in the moment. And, because we're constantly unlocking doors as we go through this process. And so I may be all over the place. I'm not going to lie to you. That's why when you're with your therapist, and the way it's typically supposed to be done is you generate a timeline, a significant timeline. But I ain't doing it. Okay. So just go along with me for this difficult, just thing. And so, again, we're going back to the facts. I want to go back to the beginning, which is in the year 2007. Now, the information that I'm going to be providing in this video, it's all going to be referencing what happened during that time and how I felt during that time. Please keep in mind that when I say, oh, I was talking to DeMarte, or I was talking to him on the phone, keep in mind that it's really not DeMarte. Okay, that it's really his dad, Marlon Vaughn, pretending to be DeMarte. He had taken on that identity and he used it to abuse me. All right. And so I'm going to be talking about this story, but I don't want to keep saying, remember it's the dad. I'm just letting you know now, remember that it's the dad. Okay. So going back to 2007, when I was a freshman at Ruskin High School, shout out to all my Ruskin goers. Class of 2008 was the best class. And I said it because it's true. So anyway, I didn't have a terrible high school experience. High school was not something that I had to survive. I had great relationships with my teachers. I was an athlete. I was friends with people in different, groups. And I don't know. I was editor-in-chief of the newspaper. I did play or musicals. I was a square. I did the musical Clue, and I was Miss Scarlet. Okay. And then I did The Wizard of Oz, and I was the Wicked Witch. And I won Best Actress for that role. Thank you very much. And so I'm proud of that. But I was a square. I was a square. Um, and okay, so 2007 is where we are. DeMarte is a freshman. And so he's brand new to the school. I also, sorry, my anxiety and all of that is high because of this because I'm recording right now. So you see me doing some things, I'm just self-soothing. So I apologize for the pauses. Okay. So he was a freshman, brand new. I was just coming out of a relationship. Well, not really just coming out of the year before my junior year. I broke up with my high school sweetheart the day before prom. When we got to prom, I mean, it was such a fresh breakup that my dress and his tux matched each other's. But we didn't go together, right? And so he came with another date, and I went with my best friend at the time. So, um, when I was in high school, there was a code that existed there where if your homeboy was in a relationship, a serious relationship, like they really had feelings for this girl and they broke up, she was off limits. I don't know where that code disappeared to, but it used to be a thing when I was in school. Is that if you had a group of homeboys and one of your homeboys was really sweet on this girl and they had a bad breakup, you wouldn't go fuck your homeboy's girl. Like, you wouldn't do that, you know? And not out of like despiteful shit, okay? I'm talking about it's a respect thing, right? It's a loyalty thing. And so even when me and him had broken up my junior year, my senior year, I was like, oh, you know, you can't talk to her. That's so-and-so's girl, even though we were broken up. And so I was kind of like off limits, which I was up completely okay with. I was completely okay with because I just was not interested in a relationship. And so DeMarte, again, is a freshman. And he was that boy like Roger on Sister Sister. Like, it was very clear that he had a crush on me. But it was like, you know, cute, like, nah, I'm good. But it's cute though. And so he would do things to make me smile, to make me laugh. Just corny goofball things. He was a goofball. And he tried really hard. He tried really hard. And I was still like, no, not interested. And so something happened where there was, I don't know if it was a game or something. I can't recall everything, but I just know him and his dad were sitting in the bleachers. And so one way or another, I ended up going up the bleachers. I don't know, I don't remember why, and talking with him. And his dad was sitting right there. And he introduced me to his dad, you know, and he was telling me that something was going on with his phone. Like, it was some urgency to his voice, some seriousness to his voice. And it made me be like, okay, here, use mine, you know, blah, blah. And I handed him my flip phone, you know, the phone that you get free with the plan. Right. I'm the world's fastest T9 texter. Okay. I need a medal. Being in that coat, that notebook, that desk. Okay. I should be an Olympian when it comes to T9 texting. So big move. Uh, so I gave him my flip phone and he called a number and something happened, or I really was lost. I'm gonna be honest. I was lost. I just was like, I'm just trying to help you at this point. And he hands me the phone, my phone back, and he says something to me. And then he finishes it with this grin. And it was one of those grins where I'm like, why are you smiling like that? And he was like, now I have your number. And I was like, what? Now, in that time, I was really like, wow, like, you really go that far to have me give me, like, you were crazy, like, you were insane. And so my best friend at the time, who was Brooke, and shout out to Brooke, she really was like, you know, you should call him. And I was like, you know, no. It's, but something in me was like, okay, that was cute. That little shenanigan that he did. Okay, I'll call him. Right? He worked really hard for this. Dumb. Anywho, so I called him, and Brooke was with me when I called him because I was scared to call him by myself. And so I called him, and I heard this voice. And I was taken back by the voice that I heard on the phone. And so was Brooke. We were taken back because he sounded nothing like he does. Like he didn't sound like how he looked, right? And his voice was smooth and like, yeah, hello. You know what I'm talking about, that voice. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Especially during that time over the phone. During that time, we had to sneak on house phones. Okay. You had to have good phone voice. Okay. Back in them times. And so I loved his voice on the phone already. And I was like, even in they're saying my internet connection is bad. I hope this sounds okay. I'm gonna be pissed if it's fucked up. But let me see, what was I saying? Yeah. Anyway, I liked how he sounded on the phone. And we continued to talk on the phone. Now, mind you, we weren't just like a couple, but it eventually got to a point where, because of our conversations over the phone, I started developing feelings for him. And so I eventually was like, sure, I'll give it a go. And we ended up making it official. Me and DeMarte were in a relationship. And so throughout our high school relationship, there was a lot of, me and DeMarte hanging out at his house. I met his mom, his younger brother, his sister, his grandma, his aunt, right? And they knew who I was, and that I was DeMarte's girlfriend. They just thought it was crazy that he was with a senior, and that I was, eventually like one of those girls who, had her head on straight. And his mom was very protective, very aggressive. She was a very masculine woman. And I mean, I'm not talking about her looks, I'm talking about her demeanor. She's very masculine. And so his dad was very just present. He was always there, always around. When I would come over there, I would hang out with DeMarte, in his room, and we'd be watching TV or doing something. And then, towards the end of the night, we go into what they called the lounge, where his dad had converted their garage into a man cave, basically. And so we'd go back there and sit on the couch and watch stuff. And his dad had a recliner that was right next to the couch, and that was his chair. No matter what, that's where he was sitting. Nobody else sat in that chair. And so me and Dorothy would lay on the couch, we'd be cuddling and watching movies, and his dad would be right there. And they made, to me, it wasn't like weird because on the phone, he had let me know that it was simply for like chaperoning. Right? That's how it started out. Dad was just around because, that was just the rule. Y'all weren't going to be anywhere by yourself. And so the dad would be in the room chaperoning or monitoring or whatever, while me and DeMarte would, just chill. And so, a lot of that happened. Let's see what else happened in that relationship. Because I would hang out at his house a lot. Or we would go on drives. His dad and him would pick me up, and he would convince me. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. He would pick me up, and we would go on drives together, where I would be in the back seat in the beginning. I'd be in the back seat or the front seat, and the dad would be driving and the Marte would be somewhere else. That's how the seats were. Either I was in the passenger seat while his dad was driving, or I was in the back seat while his dad was driving. One of those two, until DeMarte started learning how to drive himself. And so his dad he would be driving, his dad would be in the front seat and I'd be in the back. And so when we go on these drives together, um, again, it would just be it would always be the three of us. And we would, like, take a drive to Taco Bell, or, just up in Grandview and then go back and then turn back around. Like, it wasn't long drives, or nothing too crazy. It was just something for us to do that was outside of just me hanging out at DeMarte's house. He never really took me out on dates, which was really odd to me. I questioned that a lot. Like, why do we not go anywhere? Why don't you take me to the movies, or take me out to dinner, or take me? And I was starting to feel like he was hiding me. Um, and I think I felt that way because, don't get me wrong, like, DeMarte was a very attractive person, at least to me. And he ended up turning out, like, all the girlies was after him throughout his high school experience. So a lot of people agreed that he was handsome. And but he had a social media. I wasn't nowhere on it. We never went anywhere other than his house. And so I questioned why we didn't go anywhere. And so on the phone, he would tell me, well, I don't want to take you anywhere if we don't have the money, or if I don't have the money to take you out. And so I wanted to be out with him so bad that I was paying for us to go places. I was paying for us to go to the movies and out to eat and all these things, because I felt like I just wanted to spend time with you. And if it meant me spending my money, then I'll do that. And over the phone, he would make it seem like that was just so, um, just like made me a great woman. And we spent a lot of time on the phone. And that's why I was starting to question, like, why don't you take me out? Why don't we do places? Do places. Why don't we go places? And we talk on the phone so much. Like, we talk all night. We talk all day on the weekends. Um, and so a lot of things happened that first year of our relationship, where he was starting to teach me, like, sexual things, like on the phone. He taught me how to have phone sex. And it went from, like, that being something that happened every now and then to it happening all the time. And I really didn't know what was going on with my body because I really didn't know it yet. Right. And so when we would have phone sex, it was like this high expectation that was there, where I remember him telling me how I should feel and what my body should be doing. And it wasn't doing that. But I didn't want to, like, say that. I didn't want to say, no, I don't feel anything. No, I'm not. Like, what am I doing wrong? And so in an effort to please him over the phone, I just started pretending. I became very skilled and a master of faking an orgasm, because this wasn't for me. Clearly, because I'm not getting any physical sensation from it. And so it literally just became something that was for him. Sex was for the man, not for me. And so I would do whatever I could to make it most enjoyable for him. And so my desire to be a pleaser sexually is rooted in trauma, which sucks. And so he would take our phone sex, like, up levels. He eventually started buying me sex toys. And, like, by the time I graduated high school, I probably had about 5 toys that he had bought for me. And he taught me how to use them. He taught me, instructed me what to do with them. And he named them. They all had names and they were S names. Like, he said he'd get the conversation to a certain point and then he would say, go grab Slim or go grab Smooth or, they all had S names. And so he incorporated toys pretty quickly. Another thing was that he would tell me to record things. He would tell me to take pictures. He would tell me what he wanted me to do in those videos, what poses he wanted me in for the pictures. And I would do it and I would send it. So yeah, I just spent a lot of my high school years just sort of again being his little plaything. And when we weren't having phone sex, we were meeting up to have actual sex. There would be times where we would hang out at his mom and dad's house, at his house, and we would wait up until a certain point to where the dad would let us know when mom was asleep, and he'd go in his spot in that room and be the lookout while me and DeMarte had sex. And again, it felt weird, but I was made to believe that it was normal, like this was okay. And if I ever brought that up on the phone, if, on the phone, he would say, well, my dad has to be the lookout because of this reason. And I would be like, why would he even want to do that? Like, isn't that weird? And it was almost like he'd get offended. Like, what? Like, how dare you even think that he's in that mindset? Like, how dare you even think that he would be thinking that way? Like, he's not a pervert. Like he would almost get upset that I would question his dad's intentions. Like, why would he want to do that? In that way. And so I learned not to question it. He would even want to record the actual sex, like physical sex. He would want to record me and him having sex. And he was like begging me to do it. And I was saying no. And he said, and there was the question of it went from me saying no to, well, how could we even do that? How would this work? And he was like, I can get my dad to record it. And I was like, absolutely not. And he would be upset with me for not agreeing to do that. And it was something that I never agreed to, but I eventually found out that there were cameras being set up while me and him would have sex, and I didn't know that I was being recorded. I know that there have been videos taken of me. I know that people have seen them, and so there was a lot of shame within. Like, I felt a lot of shame in this relationship. And a lot of it came from just the things that he was persuading me to do. One of them being the sneaking out of the house. So there were some nights where we'd talk on the phone, and this is how it usually went. We would talk on the phone, and the conversation would get sexual, and it would go from us talking on the phone. So I gotta have you. I gotta see you right now. And that would always happen in the middle of the night, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, like late. And I'd be like, oh, I wish I could do that for you. Like, I wish I could make that happen because I couldn't. And then eventually I said yes. Um, After a lot of effort, a lot of persuading, manipulating, I said yes just to please him, to give him what he wanted, and me feeling like I couldn't say no. And so I would sneak out of the house in the middle of the night, and him and his dad, the merchant and his dad, would pick me up and take me back to their house and seat me in the front door. Um, when I would go into the lounge, everything would already be ready for us to have sex, and his dad would go off in his spot. It would happen, and then they'd take me back home. And that was the routine for a while. It would go from us hanging out during the day to me going back home, waiting until late at night, and then sneaking back out to go see him again. And I felt a lot of shame because I felt like I was doing all of the things my parents had taught me. It went against everything my parents taught me. And I have wonderful parents. Um, I am very grateful to who my dad is. I am grateful for who my mom was. And they didn't raise, someone who was okay with sneaking out in the middle of the night. They didn't raise someone who, was just throwing her body, at somebody just in order to please them. They didn't teach me that. It was quite the opposite. And so I was doing these things, sneaking out the house to please him, but on the inside, I was feeling like I was a terrible daughter. Like my parents do so much for me. They're supportive. They work their butts off. And here I am, disobeying simple rules, simple things that they have set for me, disrespecting them, treating them like they don't deserve. And I feel bad about that. I felt a lot of shame about that. And so I'm in this relationship, and at this point in time, I'm graduating high school. And they both even come to my high school graduation. And so I go off to college, Kansas Wesleyan University in Salina, Kansas. And this is when our relationship becomes long distance. And my freshman year of college, I was very depressed for multiple reasons. I have a podcast episode about that. And so if you want to hear that one, just let me know because it's a lot. But I was depressed a lot in college. And DeMarte sort of, over the phone, wink, right? Okay, you got it? Okay. He would cry on that. He was not one of those people that was like, oh, you're depressed. No, what can I do? How do we get you up from here? Get out of bed, and go to class, this too shall pass. Like he wasn't one of those people. He definitely took advantage of the fact that I did not want to get out of bed. I stayed there all day. He loved that I stayed home all day. I mean, during the day, because my roommates would get up and go to class and I wouldn't. And so I'd have the whole dorm room to myself. And he loved that. He loved isolating me. And I remember I was getting in trouble with my brother about my minutes. I kept going over my minutes. I think it was like free over after 9 or free after 7. I think he had the low one, like it was free after 9. And um I kept going over my minutes, and I kept like raising his phone bill. I was on his plan. And so I kept raising his bill, and he'd call me and he'd chew my ass out because once again, I'd be over my minutes because he loved talking to me over the phone. And I felt like I couldn't say no. And so when that became an issue, I felt bad. Like just, um, like I felt bad. Like, he is having me on his phone plan. I'm not paying a penny. I have a nicer phone. And the least that I can do is do what the fuck I'm supposed to do, which is talk, stay your ass off the phone until after 9 o'clock. It's simple. Why is that hard for you? And it was because I was with someone who made that extremely difficult to do. I couldn't. And so I would feel bad. I would feel shame because I was getting in trouble with my brother, who was doing nothing but helping me. And what was his solution to this? Was he bought a landline phone for my dorm room. So then now we don't have to worry about the phone. Right? Now we don't have to worry about the phone. Now I have a phone. Now you have a phone in your dorm room where I can call you directly. And so that's what he started to do. Um, him and DeMarte came to visit me. The dad and DeMarte came to visit me at college. And they had a hotel room. And if you're asking if he booked 2 rooms, the answer is no. And again, I didn't find this weird. I didn't find this wrong. To me, it was normal. How it had always been. And we did have sex in the hotel room. The room had 2 beds. And so me and DeMarte was in this bed. The dad was in this bed. But when we started to have sex, the dad like went off and then, like barricaded himself in a corner, like facing the opposite direction. That's how he would always make it look. Like although he was in the room, he did not want to be there. And he was going to do everything in his power to not see what was happening and not hear what was happening. And so that's what he would always make it seem like. But on the phone, one thing that he would always like to do after me and DeMarte like had sex, he would call me when I got home and he'd want to hear all the details. Did you like it when I did this? I love it when you did this. Right? So again, just recalling all of the things that you had to have seen to know that. Had to have seen or been a part of to know that. And he did that every single time we would have sex. He'd call me on the phone when I got home and we just reminisce and talk about every detail. And we'd eventually have phone sex again. And I would lay there and fake and pretend. And he'd wait until I pretended to have an orgasm and it would be over. And so I really had to learn how to perfect my timing and be like, okay, this is an appropriate time to fake the orgasm. Let me start to pretend to climax so this can be over. That's what phone sex became for me. Um, and it was just a lot of instruction. But anywho, they came to visit me. He would barricade himself like, he couldn't hear or see anything. And we had sex in the hotel room. Um, we got into a really bad argument that night, um, about this guy who I had been entertaining while at school. Um, and I really felt like my freshman year of college because I did not know how to be alone. I did not know, like, although I talked to DeMarte on the phone all the time, I was very lonely because with him, it was just becoming like this persona. Like I was really starting to detach from it. And the part of me that detached from that was craving just love and to be loved. And I was starting to think that what I had with DeMarte was not love. And it sucked. It sucked to come face to face with that and then find yourself desperate to have it. And I was made to believe that love meant sex. That, if I give this to you, if I do this with you, that this is how I be, this is how I'm worthy, this is my value, this is how I'm loved. And so I was doing things or engaging in activities with the person that I shouldn't have. And I think on the phone, DeMarte was suspecting that, because he would be very upset. He was becoming very possessive. Like, he'd get really upset if I went out. If I told him I was going out with a group of friends to, wherever, he'd want to know all the details, where I'm going, who's going, and let me not call him back. Let me like fuck around and not call him until the next morning. Right? I'm everything under the sun. I've done everything under the sun. And at that point in time, I really had it. At that point in time, I really wasn't doing anything. And so I got to a point where I was like, man, the way you're talking to me and the way you're treating me, this isn't love. It can't be. And I really don't know what love is because, I come from a family who is just we're not very like lovey-dovey people. I mean, I am now, but growing up, I didn't grow up in a lovey-dovey household. I didn't grow up in an affectionate household. Everybody in my house was an alpha. Everybody in my house was, aggressive and domineering and, loud and, emotions were loud. And that's what I grew up in. I didn't have people around me treating me like a little girl, and treating me soft and gentle, telling me things that you should tell little girls. I kind of grew up like an only child, and my mother was a working mom. And I found myself, drifting away from my parents because I was so ashamed of all of the secrets that I was keeping from them. And, I tried not to be, I really tried not to exist in my household. Like I would always be somewhere locked away. Um, and that was just the dynamic of my household. We still kind of get uncomfortable saying I love you to each other. And so I had no idea what love really felt like. And I was like desperate for it. And I knew I couldn't have been getting it here. I couldn't have been getting it with this person over the phone. And so I went to look for it elsewhere. And the only way that I felt like I knew how to do that was using my body. And so again, and like I'm already being accused of it anyway. And so I just cheating with a guy my freshman year because me and DeMarthe were technically in a relationship. And so technically I cheated, right? And so when they came to visit me, I was in the shower after me and DeMarthe had had sex. I was in the shower and the door is shut and I hear DeMarthe come into the bathroom and he puts his phone, my phone, like he drops it in the shower, like with me, like over the curtain. And so I pick up my phone and I'm like, why are you? And it's opened up to the messages of me and the guy that I had been cheating with. And so DeMarte looks devastated. But he doesn't like really, now that I think about it, it very much looked like, I don't know. His action, I mean, his body language didn't look like, get out. I'm telling you to get out. He's still trying to come in here. My kids don't give me a break. They don't give me a break. Even when I say, hey, I'm about to do this, I would like it if y'all let me do this and not come in. And they say, okay. And here they come. Anyway, motherhood, right? Gotta love it. So what was I saying? Oh, he found out that I had been cheating. He went through my phone and appeared to be upset. Um, and so I threw like this fit. It was like a temper tantrum because I was wrong. And I was caught and I was acting like a child about it. And I tried to leave the hotel room and DeMarte came out and outside and he walked me back into the hotel room and he was like, I'm not gonna come out here to get you again. And so I came back in the hotel room and I remember going into the bathroom and sleeping on the floor of the bathroom. And in that moment, I think I was very ashamed because I was caught cheating, right? I was embarrassed because of how I was acting. And I felt like I couldn't go back out there because I'd have to face, the questions and all that stuff. And so, I remember me eventually coming out the bathroom and sitting on the bed and having the conversation about the whole thing. I don't remember the conversation at all. But I do remember feeling like, or that feeling that things were going to be okay when we left, when he got back on the road. We hadn't broken up. I knew that. And so the rest of that year was just hell because now he was accusing me and shit then. He really don't trust me now, right? Now it's just every day is an argument. Every day I hear the worst things. Every day I'm screaming or yelling or trying to be heard. Every day it's like he felt like I had fucked up and now that just gave him even more power to do things and to hold over my head. And I would just feel bad and I just take it because I deserved it. That's what I felt. I felt I deserved to be treated this way because of what I had done. And what I had done was terrible. It was a terrible thing. But again, we didn't break up. And I felt like I didn't I remember feeling like I didn't want us to. And then it just became like this idea that it was an honor and a privilege to still be in a relationship with him. And every chance he got, he'd hold it over my head. And so we eventually got to a point, me and DeMarte continued to date, not just my freshman year of college, but we continued to talk through his sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school. And right before he went off to college. That's how long we continued to be long distance. And throughout that time, we were really on again, off again. There would also be times where, like, well, let me slow down. So after my freshman year of college, I transferred to UMKC, and I was living in an apartment on campus. And I remember it was going to be like my first time living by myself. The seed got planted for that idea from DeMarte over the phone. He thought it would just be a great idea if I got an apartment, I wouldn't have to sneak. I could, talk to him whenever I wanted to. And, um, he just had full access to me, and nobody would be around to get in the way of that. And so I got the apartment, and that's exactly how it was. I was doing a better job of going to class. I was working, put myself through school. Um, and most of my classes were in the evening. And so at night, I would usually just be in my bed with my door shut because I did have roommates in my apartment. Um, but we all had our own, section with our own bathrooms and stuff like that. And we shared the kitchen and living room, but everybody was always in their rooms. We didn't want to fuck with each other. And so, um, I was in my room all the time, and it was decorated. I had my own bathroom. My bathroom was decorated. It was fun. It was nice. And, whenever DeMarte wanted to come over, he did. And whenever he wasn't there physically, we were talking on the phone. That was also the year that I got pregnant. Um, and sorry, I just remembered I missed something. Hold that thought. I know that was big. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you there, but I have to go back to something while it's on my brain. Um, the cheating. And what made me remember this is remembering how bad he treated me when I did what I did in my freshman year of college when I cheated on him. So while me and DeMarte were together, right, there would be several instances where girls would tell me that DeMarte was cheating. There was girls at our school who were obsessed with him. People would tell me, that or where he was and who he was with, and that the number that I had for him was completely different to the number that they had for him. Um, and so this is when I really started to feel like I was going crazy, because I would confront him with the information, and he would gaslight me and make me feel like I was wrong for even entertaining what they were saying. You understand? Um, and most of the time he'd be like, tell them to give you proof. Like, he pushed proof, proof, proof. Nothing is ever true until you have proof. And so it would always be like, how was I there when I was on the phone with you all night? And it'd be like, you see what I mean? You sitting there listening to them. How does that even make sense? And I'd be like, fuck, you're right. I'm sorry. And I'd be, I would get verbally and emotionally and mentally abused for even entertaining that idea, for even listening, for giving them my time to tell me what they had to tell me. I was wrong for that. And so I would always push, if you don't have proof, I don't want to hear it. And if the proof was, well, I was with him last night, That wasn't enough. That's not enough proof because I was on the phone with him last night. And so me finding out about um my chapstick, me finding out about the separate number was a big deal. And so I started to investigate. I became the world's greatest detective. Us women, we know how we get to a point where we become the world's best detectives. And we are, right? When pushed enough, okay, Sherlock Holmes who? Ain't got nothing on us. You understand? And I was doing all of the things because I know that if I came back to Duarte with this information, I had to have proof. I had to know for sure that this is what is happening, right? And so I started to become just super irrational because I was like, it has to be true. But then it's not true because, I'm on the phone with you, but she's saying that she was with you. And then I suspect that it's not you who I'm talking to on the phone, but on the phone, you're able to tell me details about the school day and events that you weren't even there for. You can tell me, details. Okay, I'm almost done, so that's perfect. Uh, Thank you for reminding me. Well, I might suck your dick later. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not, but I shouldn't have told y'all that. That's my bad. Boundaries. Okay. So, okay. Where was I at? Mm, Give me a minute. I'm going to find it. I was talking about. Mm, Give me a moment. I'm going to get it. So, proof. World's greatest detective. Right? And so I started doing all of the irrational things, going through phones, setting up meetings, three-way calls, um, pop-ups, staking out his house. I just become cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because I literally felt like I was going fucking crazy. And some of this has to be true, right? Like everybody can't be lying. And so if this is happening again, I had to have proof. And so there was one instance where I got the proof that I was looking for. My mama always said, don't go looking if you ain't prepared for what you find. And I wasn't. I was not. I ended up using my detective skills to acquire some Facebook messages. And there were y'all, when I say there were so many girls, you understand? Like, DeMarte was a hoe. Like, let's just call it spade a spade. There were so many girls. And I'm not just saying, like, I'm talking about, like, I loved, that you came over last night. Thank you, Bob. Like, are we going to have to do this again? This, that, third, like, him going, like, a lot of girls. And when I tell you that I was devastated, like, I was devastated. You understand? Because to find out in one moment that I wasn't crazy, right? So to have that relief, but to also be so hurt by the lengths that you were willing to go to make me feel like I was crazy, when all along it was lies. Like, do you know what type of predator you have to be to fuck somebody's mind up like that? You know what I'm saying? And he was upset with me for getting the messages. All he wanted was access back to his Facebook. And I refused to give it to him because I was hurt by what I found. And so I remember going for a walk because I love going on walks. And I walked up to Longview Lake. But the part that you see from the bridge. And I sat there on the sidewalk and just looked at the water. And I was really just like heartbroken, gathering myself. I was confused. Um, and I was just hurt. I was so hurt to finally know that what the truth is. And to feel like a part of me had always known. And so that's where a lot of my, that shame again, because I was blaming myself. And we know that when you feel shame, that means you bear a responsibility and things are your fault and that you're to blame. And that's where I was mentally at that time. I blamed myself. How could I be so stupid? How, why? And then I did this. And now, he has this and, blah, blah, blah. And I was just devastated. It was a blow. You hear me? But over the phone and through text messages, all he cared about was getting access back to his Facebook. And he was saying that he was threatening to get his mother involved. And at that point in time, I really didn't care. I really wasn't hearing him because I was so caught up at how I was feeling. And so the threats just kind of came and went one ear out the other. I didn't pay them any mind because that wasn't what I was focused on. And so I had got a message saying that they were going to asking me where I was, and that I told them I was at Longview Lake. And slowly, eventually, there was a car that pulled up on me, and it was DeMarte that jumps out the car, his mom, and his younger sister, and there was some baby with them. There was always like a baby that was always around, but wasn't like an actual member of the family. Meaning like their brother or sister or somebody's baby. And so DeMarte walked up to me and he snatched my phone, out of my possession. And so when I got up to get my phone back, that's when his mom stepped in and she was calling me pathetic. She said, just letting me have it and that she would put hands on me if I even thought about touching him. And so they all got in the car and left with my phone. They stole my phone, took my phone, and said, take it back if you want to, basically. Try. And so it went from like all of these big feelings to just anger to helplessness. I remember walking back home, and it was the longest walk of my fucking life because I didn't have my cell phone, and just reflecting on why I didn't have my cell phone, and just it was a lot to process at that time. And so when I got home, my mom was there. And I was so like, again, wrapped up in my emotions that it was hard for me to hide them. And I was usually very good about hiding how I really felt to my parents. And I felt like it was just easier that way. But when I saw her and she asked me what's going on, I just like blurted out what happened. And that, his mom came up there and they took my phone. They had my phone. Like, I was really upset. And so she was like, okay, let's go. And she got me in the car and we drove around to DeMarte's house. And her intentions was to talk to her and just get my phone back. And so we went up to the door and my mom knocked on the door and DeMarte's mom answered the door. And my mom was like talking to her very calmly and saying, we shouldn't be getting involved like this in what they have going on. You have to give them a chance to work this out and to, let them handle it on their own. And so his mom was again masculine, aggressive, and she came outside just talking. And so my mom was like, noticed how she was and was like, oh no, and started walking away. And his mama just kept talking. And then she started to say things like, how I was looking up there at Longview Lake, how pathetic I was, how I was looking like I was gonna kill myself. Um, she also took it a step further and was mocking the fact that she had seen a video of me sucking DeMarte's dick and, felt the need to say that in front of my mother. And so my mother went into protective mom mode and kind of started talking like, what? Like, okay. And started walking in her direction too. And I know when to pull my mom back. I know when to be like, okay, it's time to get you out of this. And so I got my mom out of there. And the mom was still talking, and the daughter was talking too. Like, she was pretending to be tough in front of her mother. Um, you know, monkey see, monkey do. And so me and my mom left, and my mom was upset with me that I was involved, that she had to get involved. And again, I just felt shame and embarrassment, and I had zero control. And so, um, it was finally arranged for me to meet up and get my phone back. So me and my mom drove up to Smith Hill. We should say after this gone, y'all. But anyway, we pulled up in the Smith Hill parking lot, and DeMarte and his dad pulled up beside us. And me and DeMarte got out the car, and DeMarte gave me my phone in exchange for his passwords to his Facebook. And so when I got my phone in my hand, I still gave him some fake ass password as a fuck you, only to realize that once I got home, he did give me my phone back, but he took out the chip that had all of my pictures and stuff on it, pictures, videos, all of those things. And so he spent the next couple of days letting me know about the things he saw on my phone, and like, oh, it's funny, I didn't, when did this happen, and blah, 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 and why'd you take this picture? Who was this picture for? Or just whatever, just making fun of the fact that, yes, I have your card, I have your chip, and you're not going to get it back. And I never did get it back. And so, yeah, I was really devastated by what had happened, but me and DeMarte continued to talk. We continued to talk on the phone. We continued to see each other in person. And so when I did come back to UMKC, we still had a relationship. Like, we weren't technically a couple, but I was definitely much still his property. Even if I did choose to go out with a guy, I felt like I had to tell him. I felt like I had to be honest about it, and he'd want to know about the details of the date and what I thought about the guy, and he would tell me how the guy wasn't good for me, and I can already tell this ain't gonna last. That would always be his opinion. And um so yeah, we weren't really like in a relationship, but we were still talking on the phone a lot. DeMarte would come over, he'd have sex, he'd leave, um, and that was that. And so, somewhere along the way, I ended up getting pregnant, right? So now we're back. Sorry. So I got pregnant, and it was devastating for me because I had also recently found out that DeMarte had a girlfriend. Now, mind you, I was his property, but he was not mine, right? And that bothered me. I had a problem with that. And so I would get upset with him about it, and we'd argue about it all the time. We still argued a lot. And um I'd be like, you never posted me on your social media, and he never told me that he was in a relationship, even though I had to be honest about everybody that I was seeing. And so I was like, how dare you? You're in a relationship with someone and you didn't even tell me, right? And mind you, the DeMarte that was DeMarte in person, he had zero ties to me at this point. He was living his life as a high school, you know, sophomore or junior, senior, he was living his life because I was no longer in a relationship with him. I was in a relationship with the dad because all we did was talk on the phone. And so when he would come over and see me, it was literally just at the dad's request. Like he had nothing was there because I wasn't in a relationship with him. And so I would see his Facebook and see him posting this girl on his Facebook. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, for one, you never posted me. And then two, you're in a relationship and you didn't even tell me about it. Right? Like, you didn't think I'd find out. And I remember finding out I was pregnant around that same time. And I was so upset about everything that I ended up messaging his mom. And I think I had messaged the girlfriend too and told her that I was pregnant. I can't remember if I messaged the girlfriend, but I know for sure I messaged the mom. And I remember telling her, that I'm pregnant. And I remember telling her how bad DeMarce was treating me. And that we were still talking because at that point his mom did not fuck with me at all. If she ever saw me, who knows what she probably do. Like, she did not fuck with me. And so it was kind of like a secret that we kept from her that we were still continuing to talk and see each other. She couldn't know. So I wrote his mom and was like, we very much have still been talking all this time, and I'm pregnant, and blah, 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 blah. And this is what your son is doing to me. This is how he's treating me. This is how he's talking to me. And, I just wanted you to know. And so I felt like I was doing something. Like, I felt like, take that, And his mom never responded. And so, almost then. And so his mom never responded, right? And I remember when we found out I was pregnant, DeMarte came to my apartment and he sat on my bed. He was emotional. He was begging me not to keep the baby. He was telling me how he had his whole life ahead of him, how, he was about to go off to college on a scholarship. And this baby was the last thing that he needed. And when I say it was like, I was so numb, dead inside, that he didn't want to keep the baby. And so he was encouraging me to get an abortion. And it was heartbreaking. And so I remember calling my mom and asking her to meet me at Applebee's. And I told her everything, that I was pregnant, that DeMarce doesn't want the baby, and I don't know what to do. And my mom was very supportive. She laid it all out for me, the reality of the situation, for not just right now, but what was to come, and just what I'd be facing. And she was like, whatever decision you make, or that I made, that she would support whatever decision I made, but that decision should be mine and mine alone. And we talked about what it would look like if I didn't have the baby, what it would look like if I did have the baby. And I remember thinking that, I remember myself at that time being against abortion. Not in a way like you shouldn't do that, but it's like that wasn't something I knew. Like, it wasn't something, like, all my aunties got kids, hella kids. If people were having abortions at that time, I had no clue. And so I just knew it was something I didn't want to do. And either way, I made the decision not to have the baby, or not to keep the baby. And so I got me an appointment at Planned Parenthood, and DeMarte came to the appointment. He helped pay I don't remember if he paid the whole thing or some of it. Um, but he contributed to the cost. Um, he sat there the whole appointment while I was in the back doing everything. And in that process, I remember just being numb like a robot. They were checking me, sticking things in me, poking my blood. Um, and I hate needles. I hate being a doctor. I tell you, I couldn't feel any of it. And they took me back in this room where I was sitting on in a recliner, just waiting to be called back. And they instructed me that once the procedure was done, that this is where they would return me, and that whoever was with me, they'd escort me to them after and a lot of time had passed, and that I would go home with, whatever. And so I remember just going through the procedure of them taking me back there and laying me on a metal table and using this vacuum like thing to go in me and suck everything out. And I remember laying there crying, but really not making any sound or any type of movement. And I was just staring off, and I saw them walk past me with the jar in their hand. And I just remember, um, I just remember falling apart. Um, and so he came and got me out the room. He drove me back home. I think I went to my mom and dad's house because my mom knew I had got the abortion, but my dad, he still doesn't know. And if he watches this will be when he finds out. But on the ride home, not a word was said. I just looked out the window and I just cried. We really didn't say much when I got out the car. And I remember going inside and just getting in the bed. And my mom was kind of monitoring me in secret, letting me know, like, don't be, you're doing too much. Quit going up and down those stairs. Just monitoring me in secret. And she kept that secret all the way up until she passed. Matter of fact, my mom was very much into Pandora charms and bracelets. And one of her charms was dedicated to that. And it was a lockbox with a key that was supposed to symbolize the secrets that we've kept for each other. And that was a big one that she kept for me. But it was very damaging. It was very damaging. And so, I was still talking to him on the phone. I continued to talk with him, and I'd sit on the phone and I'd cry, and I'd just tell him how much of a, terrible person he was. And it's crazy to think about the fact, of how bad he treated me when he caught me cheating. When technically DeMarte had been cheating on me forever with numerous people. right? And so all those things were coming back, in those moments of just depression after having the abortion. And I started to feel nothing but just anger. And I felt like I needed to escape and that I needed a fresh start. And I knew I wanted to go to school, but I couldn't afford to continue to put myself through school. And so I had a best friend at the time named Alex who was joining the army, and he was talking to me about the benefits of the military in school. And I went to go see a recruiter just to get some information, and I ended up enlisting. And I did not again join the military out of patriotism. I joined the military so that I could get the benefits 4 years later and go to school. My drive for school is rooted in trauma as well, and I have a podcast episode about that too. If you want to listen, right? But yes, so well, I've been talking for an hour and 16 minutes straight. Damn, if you stay with me this far, thank you, friend. You love me. You don't have to say it, but I can feel it. So, um, I enlisted. I went to boot camp in Chicago or Great Lakes. It's not Chicago, it's Great Lakes. Then I went from there to A school in Pensacola, Florida. And during this time, me and DeMarte, we very much weren't together, but we were still talking on the phone, still talking to each other, and still very much possessive, doing the same old shit. But I was starting to separate from him more because I was out of that, and I was out of that environment to where now I felt like I could choose if I wanted to deal with you or not. And so he could feel me kind of pulling away. And so he began to get a lot more irrational, and the verbal stuff just got worse. And with me being in beautiful places, I think I was just starting to lose my what's it called? He was losing power. He was losing his control. Um, and I remember going to Bremerton, Washington, because I got orders to the Reagan after A school. And I took my military role very seriously, even though I knew I wasn't going to retire. I still wanted to do everything I could to leave the military on good terms, honorable discharge, anything I could to get extra this, extra that. And if whenever I attach my name to something, I'm going to try and be the best at it. It's in my blood. And so I went to A school and I was assistant class leader. I graduated second in my class. I was A-Rock, square, right? Joe Navy was me. My boots was always shining, okay? And my uniform was always squared the fuck away. You understand? I took pride in it. And I took pride in it because there were a lot of people in my life who I loved and who I care about who was proud of me. And so I took it very seriously. I got orders to the Reagan, which was stationed in Bremerton, Washington at the time, but they were doing a home port change. And so I would eventually be in San Diego, California. And so I met the ship out in Bremerton, Washington. And at that time, me and DeMarte were still talking over the phone. But during that time, that is when our relationship really started to, dissolve, like go away. Like we went from talking every now and then, because when I was in Bremerton, Washington, I was still very much alone. I didn't really know anyone yet. I was new and I hated sleeping on the ship. So I would always go get an apartment on base, a hotel room on base and sleep there. I was at the rec center all the time. I was always there playing pickup basketball. I even became a part of the women's basketball team. for my shit. And so that was nice to play basketball for the Navy, right? Not like the big, huge Navy team, but just like I'm pretty like the team. You get what I'm saying? And so I was developing friendships and where was I going with that? Oh, and so I spent a lot of time alone in the beginning. And when I was alone, he was who I was talking to. And I would really get hotel rooms because I didn't get good signal on the ship. And if I don't have good signal, we can't talk on the phone. And so I would get hotel rooms so that I could talk on the phone with him. And again, isolating. And the more I started to get out, because I was like by myself and I would go to the rec center again all the time. I was meeting people, joining basketball teams, making friendships. I met my best friends in the military. And so I got away from that eventually. And that was, again, when I was 22, when I was 22 years old, is when we no longer had a relationship. Now, when I did find out that it was him, I want to get to that story about how did I find out? How did I find out that it was the dad? Right. So fast forward to 2017. I am in Kansas City. I have a daughter. My mother is in hospice. And so I am there in Kansas City to assist with taking care of her. I was living in Chicago at the time because I was married and my husband at that time got orders to Chicago. But I took the train back home, me in London, so that I could take care of my mother while she was on hospice. Now at that time, I was in a very abusive, a verbally, well, it was an abusive marriage. I'll be trying to say it was abusive, goddamn it, in every way. Okay, I was trying to be clinical. I was in an abusive marriage. A lot of the same similarities between the dad and my husband in terms of just those tendencies. And so my ex-husband cheated on me a lot. And during that time, he had convinced me to stay married because we were moving somewhere new and we'd have a fresh start and we could really work on our marriage and this, and a third. And so boom, my mom gets sick and I am in Kansas City and I find out the whole time I'm in Kansas City, taking care of my mother in hospice, he's cheating on me with another girl. And I find out because while I'm in Kansas City taking care of my mother, a random person sent me a video of the girl that he was cheating on me with. She had a Snapchat. And so this common friend of theirs recorded her Snapchat story with her phone and sent me the video. Excuse me. And so on the girl's Snapchat, there were, just a video or Snapchats of their Snapchats of their date. They were on a date and they were pretty close. Like you could tell this wasn't the first date. And so I sent him a video of it. And his first response was that it wasn't him in the video and that I was crazy. Like he did it. Again, like I said, same shit. Right. And so I also ended up having, okay. I'm in Kansas City. I just I just found out that my husband is cheating on me while I'm away taking care of my mother. in hospice, what she knew about. I was pregnant at the time with my second child by him. And so um, I ended up having a miscarriage, which they said was due to stress. And I just remember bleeding a lot and cramping a lot. And I called the nurse line. Um, and they told me what they thought was happening and that I should, go to the doctor and blah, blah, blah. Honey, what? Hurry up. What? Are you coming along? Yes, I will be out there in a minute. Please don't hear these asking me that. What else to get? Sure, go ahead. Class. Okay. Sorry. So, where was I? Um, hmm. Clearly I'm neglecting my family now because they keep coming in here. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up. um, okay. So 2017, this is my life, right? During this time in 2017. So when I'm on the phone with the nurse, she's telling me what's going on. She's telling me what to do because I refused medical treatment technically. I wanted to be at home with my mother, and she was at that point where it could happen anytime, in any day, anytime. It was a waiting game. And I did not want to take that chance and wind up in the hospital and my mother passes away. And so I refused medical treatment and bless her heart, she, um, as much as she pushed for me to come, to the hospital, she, just made sure I was well informed before getting off the phone. She respected my decision and just said, this is what you'll expect. This is what you'll feel. This is what you should do. Recovery, blah, 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 blah. And so I had my miscarriage at home. And so I'm dealing with all of that. And everybody is reaching out to me from the past. Everybody was reaching out to me from my hometown, people I went to high school with, people who knew my mother, just reaching out to me, because they had heard what was going on. And he was one of those people. I ended up getting a message on social media which said DeMarte Pearson, just inquiring how I was. And I was kind of taken back to see him. I hadn't seen that name in years. And so I was flooded with a lot of things at that moment. And I ended up, messaging him back. And we started back texting. And then texting turned into talking. And he was the same voice. And he would, talk about how good it felt to hear my voice again and how much he had missed it and blah, 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 blah. That's where it eventually led to. And then somewhere in there, sexual things started to come up again. And he was asking me, to meet up with him at somewhere at a hotel or something. And we ended up doing that. So I'm on the phone with him. We're talking more. And it eventually gets to the point where we're ready to see each other. We're ready to link up and do what we've always done. And so I'm nervous as hell when I get there because I hadn't seen him in years. And so I get a knock on the hotel room door and I open it up and it's DeMarte. Like that present time, DeMarte. I mean, he looked very different. He just looked like life had gotten a hold to him, like it tends to do. And he's just, and I remember him coming in and him just looking so like done with the world. He had this demeanor like he did not want to be there. And so I began to like lose interest. Like, I don't think I'm gonna do this. But I felt like again I had got back to that mental point where I'm like, I can't say no. Right. And so he walks over to me and like kind of It's like, are we going to do this, type of demeanor. And I'm just like, okay. And so we do the do, right? And it's very rough. And I was kind of just waiting for it to be over. He did things that I wasn't comfortable with, things that were painful. And it was just, after it was done, the feeling that I had it made me just question everything. I was like, this can't be the person that I've been talking to on the phone for these past couple of weeks. It can't be. And I started to feel violated. And like I had been assaulted is how I started to feel. And so something happened where he went over, DeMarte got up and was getting himself together, went over to the sink and the shelf fell or something like that. And he started laughing and blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, well, I'm about to get up out of here. And I was just sitting there like, okay. And he left. And so soon he called me like he always does after we have sex. He calls me and I just stop him. Before he could even, say anything, I was like, stop. I know that the person who just left this hotel room, the person who just had sex with me, like, the person who just had sex with me like that, who was just like, what's it called when you're not really just disconnected, right? Like the person who just left here and had sex with me like that cannot be the person that I'm talking to on the phone. I was like, you either tell me the truth. Well, before I said that, I was like, can you tell me what I had on when you were here? Matter of fact, can you tell me that funny thing that happened to you when you went over by the sink? And he started to act dumbfounded, like I was crazy. And what am I talking about? And then the phone got disconnected. And he called back. And suddenly he was able to answer my questions. And I was like, stop. I was like, I was stupid, but I ain't that stupid. Okay. Like I know that you probably got off the phone with me, called to Marseille, got all the details, and now you're calling me back to act like always knew them. No, no, sir. I was like, if you don't tell me the truth, you will never hear from me again. And I had this belief that he loved me. I had this belief that whatever we were was love and that he cared about me. Because despite all the things that we've done to each other, despite all the things he's done and said to me, all the ways that he's treated me, what his life looks like outside of the phone, he still remained in my life by choice. And so, there was, although very trauma-filled, there was a strong connection. And I believe that. And so I use that to my advantage. And I said, if you don't tell me the truth, it's like I died, because you will not ever hear from me, whether it's through social media, phone calls, text mails, emails. I don't give a fuck. You will be blocked from everything. You will no longer hear from me. And you will never call this phone again. And so he said something and hung up the phone. And I was like, okay, cool. Because I believe firmly I stood on business this day. And so he ended up calling back and was trying to go into some whatever. And I was like, no. I was like, you should only be calling here to tell me one thing. And I hung up the phone so that he can know I'm not playing this time. I mean it. And so he called back and I answered the phone and I was like, do you have something you want to tell me? Before he could even say whatever, I asked. I said, do you have something to tell me? And so there was a pause and some breathing. And he was like, it's me. And I said, me who? And he said, it's Marlon. And I said, how long? And he said, he lied and said it was almost like a year into their relationship. And I know that's a lie because I know his voice. I know it very well. And I've heard that same voice since day one. He can lie all he wants to. He's not ready to own up to that, and that's fine. But I know what truth is. And it's been him since day one. So a part of me in that moment felt relieved. That's the biggest one that comes to my mind first, because I was not crazy. Right? All those times where I was like, you can't be two punches at once. With this shit, you can. You could be talking to me, caked up with me on the phone, and Marte is out living his life being seen wherever with whoever. That's how that happens. Because I really wasn't in a relationship with DeMarte. I really wasn't with him. I was in the phone. Oh, I'm in the phone. I was on the phone, cooped up with you. I was in a relationship with you, not DeMarte. And I said that. I was like, so all this time, it's you who I've been in a relationship with. And he said yes. And I remember it took me back to something he had said on the phone to me one time about, what his dad said to him when he first saw me. And this is DeMarte on the phone, so this is the dad telling me what you really thought about me the first time you saw me. And it was, she's too much woman for you. That's too much. That's too much. You're not ready for that. That's what the dad said to him when he first saw me, like that day when I came up them bleachers and he did that tricky shit to get my number. That was his first impression of me. And so I remember thinking like I wasn't crazy. And I was like upset. I was upset, and then it was more like a delusion. Like that's the best way I could describe it, because I should have been upset. I was so vulnerable and so weak-minded at the time that, like, I did not know my worth. I did not know my value at all. I continued to give this man who had preyed on me and groomed me since I was 17 years old. I still continued to have conversations with him. And now it wasn't through DeMarte anymore. Now when we met up to talk, we met at home, we like to have these deep discussions. It was me and the dad. And he was recalling things. And I was like, so at this time, was this happening? Did you do this? Blah, 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 blah. Right? And somewhere along the way, you know, we continued to have conversation. I moved to Lawrence because I started going to KU. And he would come up there and visit me, but I didn't trust him because of everything that had happened. So I would make him leave his cell phone in the room, and we would actually do sexual things. Now, his dad is a big dude, and so it was just mostly foreplay things. I've never seen his feelings ever. Um, and so he's done plenty. He's seen plenty of me, and so yeah, that's how I found out. And again, I remember thinking about all the things that were wrong about this, because again, I was still processing it. And I remember thinking about his wife and how, if it was him, it's a fact now, talking to me on the phone all this time, where the fuck were you? Right? Like, were you okay with the fact that your man was locked up in his lounge all night, every night, caked up on the phone? Like, I would have been came in there and got his ass. Like, excuse me, are you coming to bed or no? What we doing? Like, there's no way. And we did this for years, which made me think, like, were you aware? And who was aware, right? Like, your whole family is fucking sick. That's the way I started to feel, right? And then I started realizing that me seeing you is wrong. This is wrong. I shouldn't be, I shouldn't be nice to you. I shouldn't even be continuing to allow you to spend time with me, to indulge in me. I shouldn't be allowing any of those things. And I was. And so eventually we just stopped talking. And I didn't revisit this until last year. And that was in 2018, 19. And I hadn't talked to him since. And I still haven't talked to him. So that's the feeling. That's the emotions that I've tied to this story. The biggest ones being shame. This is where my self-doubt and my self-hatred developed. I hated myself for the things that I was doing. I was ashamed of the secrets that I was keeping. I was manipulated. I was taken advantage of. And I blamed myself and felt like this is what I deserve. Right? This is all that I'm worthy of. Right? And my body is all that I have to prove love. Right? So that's phase 2. I know that was a lot. This was a long one. So thank y'all for sticking with me. And the next phase of this trauma narrative will be attaching meaning and reflecting on feelings that I have present day rather than during that time. Connections I've made, loose ends I've tied, things that I've had to accept, process, make room for, acknowledge. And this is the best one in my opinion, next phase, because this is where I get to share all the lessons that I've learned, and with someone who has a passion for being of service to others. I feel like it's gatekeeping if I choose to keep those things or choose not to share those things. And so again, I appreciate you for being here and listening to me. And I hope to see you on the next one. I gotta tend to my family. I'm being a terrible mother right now. I got some making up to do. Okay. But thank you again. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.